Good morning, everyone, and welcome to People's Church. Love is the doctrine of this church. Our faith in each other is its sacrament, working for justice and living with compassion in its prayer. Reverently, we covenant together to side with love, to heal and not harm, and to share hope with each other and with the world. Welcome. Let us worship together. Chalice lighting words are adapted from People of Hope by Daryl Lucano. We all need a place we can go to learn what is real, to ponder the depths of the soul where truth is revealed. This is our place. This is our home. Are here in this room, hearts open wide. Let it be you, let it be me. People's Church is a welcoming community where we find connection and meaning, where our joys are amplified and our sorrows are lessened. If you would like, please come forward and release a stone into the bowl, the water, in silence or with a brief verbal expression of a special joy or sorrow. A religious community is like a river formed from the many streams of our lives that meet and merge and flow to the sea. As members of this religious community of People's Church, we share our time and energy, our creativity, imagination and vision, our talents, skills, and gifts, and the streams of our individual lives to create a river that is both deep and broad, a river that is made of many streams, sustains life, and refreshes the land through which it flows. But the river of this community also depends on our shared financial support that makes real our shared values and vision. One of the wonderful ways that People's People have contributed to this church is last Tuesday, while setting up these chairs, our Buildings and Ground Committee found a huge ladder, and they vacuumed out every single one of these ceiling lights. And not only that, they wiped them clean with a wet cloth, so the bugs are gone, and they're just like they were when they started. So please, give generously. Join me in giving thanks for all that sustains us. From the countless gifts we each have been given, gifts of life and love and sustenance, we bring these small portions to share in the works of love which none of us can accomplish alone. The next reading is by someone I consider my religious guru, a man named Eknath Easwaran, who has developed a meditation called Passage Meditation. The widest possibilities for growth lie in the give and take of everyday relationships. The truth of this is brought out sweetly in a story about St. Francis of Assisi. 3 young men approached Francis and asked his blessing to become hermits and seek God, each in his own cave, deep in the mountains of Umbria. Francis smiled. He instructed them to be hermits, indeed, but hermits all together in a single hut. One should take the role of father, a second should think of himself as the mother, and the third should be their child. Every few months, they should exchange the roles. Living in this way, they were to establish among themselves perfect harmony, thinking always of the needs of one another. We can almost see the 3 would-be recluses exchanging sidelong glances. Their teacher had issued them a greater challenge than any that they had bargained for. Yet they carried out Francis' instructions, discovering that human relationships are the perfect tool for sanding away our rough edges and getting at the core of divinity within us. We need look no further than our own family, friends, acquaintances, or even adversaries to begin our practice.
So the next reading is it's kind of adapted from one of Mark Nepo's books called Finding Inner Courage. The word courage comes from the Latin cor, which literally means heart. The original use of the word courage means to stand by one's core, a striking concept that reinforces the belief found in almost all traditions that live from the center is what enables us to face whatever life has to offer. To encourage means to impart strength and confidence, to inspire and hearten. So the question unfolds, how do we encourage ourselves, each other, and what does it mean to live a life of encouragement, to find our way to our core, and to stand by our core? To sustain the practice of living from our core is to find our way in the world by tracking our inner courage, finding where it lives, the ways of living and being that make bravery possible, an array of small and constant efforts that no one ever sees, to find our way to our core, to stand by it, and then to sustain the practice of living from that place. I have come to believe that we can only learn about and discover the capacity and meaning of our courage in the context of our struggles, and how we face and inhabit the challenges life presents to us. In this, courage is an applied art of the spirit. It is not something we can manipulate, but only live into. Recovering the source and living it out in the world alone and together is a lifelong devotion, one that we must ultimately inhabit alone, but which we must enliven together. So let us keep our seats for the next song and reflect on those words. And the words, I think, will be here.
We decided we should probably use these.
When our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the story from deep inside, and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our hearts tears within, and we feel the power of each other's faith, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place.
Good. My name is Rochelle, and so it's nice to be sharing this with you today, and I'm trying not to be nervous. This next piece is taken from a video that was made for an event a few months ago that many of us attended. And we were very fortunate. We participated in an organization called Isaac, which is an interfaith network of congregations working for social justice. And Dr. Charlet and Elder King persuaded the author of Me and White Supremacy to speak virtually with Elder King in what we called a virtual fireside chat. So we had a great representation here at our church. And since then, Dr. Charlet has encouraged us to look back at this video, to be able to reflect on it more. And we've put, I hope, did it make it in there? Oh dear. We had the link in there, but I'm sure we can count on. You see it?
It's at the very bottom.
Of course. What does Melissa ever miss? Nothing. And so it's there for you to look at the whole thing. But this particular piece is one that really grabs me, and I think it relates a lot to at least what trips me up. And reflecting on it helps me to recommit myself to live into my values. So I hope that you find meaning in it too.
Community advocacy. We have many white family members who are loving, compassionate, well-meaning, of faith and consciousness, and who have a history of with social justice and civil rights movements, those who believe themselves to be white allies. However, as BIPOC family members, when advocacy becomes difficult, some white family allies who say they're committed to this work respond in some of the definitions that you used in white silence, white apathy, white resistance, protecting the system of justifying the harm. As an example, one white leader responded when asked why he wouldn't speak up because some of his friends would get upset with him. Yet he was okay with a BIPOC leader always speaking up, and drawing the anger from those operating in white fragility. What would be your advice to those aspiring to be stronger, more effective allies, co-conspirators, who want to move away from what is called that optical performative allyship? And what does that really mean and look like?
Mm-hmm. As you were talking, I thought about so often when white folks who have Black folks in their lives and will say, well, I have a Black friend. And it's like, okay, you have a Black friend. Does your Black friend know that you're their friend, right? By the way that you act, right? Because when things are okay, yes, we're friends, things are great. But when a conflict happens, when something happens, do you show up as that friend? Are you aware of what it means to be in friendship, in relationship with somebody who is subjected to oppression interpersonally as well as societally, right?
Yes.
Do you show up as that friend that they need, or do you think that I don't need to say anything here, or this is too uncomfortable, but I still have that friend, right? So that just made me smile, because I see that happen so much. And I would really encourage folks to really question within themselves, what does it mean to be a friend, right? What does it mean to practice love and be in that beloved community? Because if you're my friend and you see me struggling, or you see something happening to me or to other people who hold my identities, or who are oppressed in similar ways to me, and I don't see you say anything, it really makes me question, is this a safe friendship for me to be in? Is this good for me to be in this friendship? And a lot of the friends that I have who are Black folks, Black women, women of color, have said to me, the friendships that they have with other white women in their lives, for example, they know if those are real friends if they've done me and white supremacy. Mm-hmm. They feel more comfortable with those friends because they know that those friends have actually taken the time to really dig inside themselves and really understand who they are in this friendship with that other person. And they approach the friendship with a much greater sense of mindfulness, a greater sense of intentionality, a greater sense of respect, and not from a place of like, oh, I have to rescue you because, you're oppressed, or, oh my gosh, I have to like step on eggshells around you because I don't know if I'm saying the wrong thing or doing the right thing, not that, but really a real sense of groundedness. We talked about in the beginning that this work is really uncomfortable. Yes, it is. But what I didn't share was that when you go through it, when you go through the layers, and when I say this work, I don't just mean me and white supremacy. I mean the ongoing work of interrogating the ways that we internalize supremacy. When we do that work, we actually begin to peel away the lies, we peel away the false identity, and we connect to and build an authentic identity, a real identity, an identity that's more courageous, as to what you were saying earlier, an identity that's willing to take more risks, and an identity that has more empathy, right? And so you don't need to say, hey, am I doing the right thing? Is it okay if I do this? Because you're doing the work, you're engaged in the work, right? And you're not afraid of making mistakes. The example that you
that Sam and Reed made possible today. Thanks so much for sharing that. It's a lot. As a white identifying person, I feel, as they say, convicted in those words, and knowing that this is how my colleagues are feeling. So I hope that you found some inspiration in it too. So our values, we know this, they provide a framework for how we live and for our why that gives meaning and purpose to our lives. You might recall the very inspiring service we had about a month ago on this theme, offered by several of our members, which continues as our theme this summer. Today, I thought it might be useful to consider, this is an interactive service where we'll have small group time, including for those of you who are on Zoom, to share what gets in our way of living our values, which is question 1, and how do we stay or go back to get on track, which is question 2. Probably won't have time to answer both of them, but maybe you want to pick the one that speaks to you. So for me, question 1, what gets in our way? For me, self-will, or let's do it my way, and fear of conflict, also sometimes called right to comfort. Those are 2 biggies for me. Conveniently, as Mark Nepo and Eshwaran are pointing out with his story, I have 2 recurring opportunities for practice that just keep coming up in my life. So one is leading the landscape committee in a condo association where we are trying to shift toward native plants. Do you get the picture? So that has helped me learn how to hold my seat with people's resistance and anger and, in my view, uninformed opinions. And the other is being part of Isaac's anti-racism task force, working with my discomfort and fear of conflict to sustain my commitment to the work that the task force undertakes. The second part of this, how do we hold ourselves to account? And I shared some things, I guess some strategies maybe that I'm sure you have your own, but I'll just offer these. One is understanding our why, which I just spoke about. Another is thinking about the company we keep. Another is looking at the sources of inspiration that we seek, and then cultivating practices to sustain, to return, and to persist. So living my values has become increasingly important to me with every passing year. I guess it's getting closer to the finish line. I want to and need to live more in alignment with my values, more of the time, and in more of an open-hearted way to do less harm with more kindness. So working with my neighbors and staying the course with the anti-racism task force has required me to learn to sit with intense feelings and experience them directly. To drop the storyline I might use in my mind to justify my actions or reactions or inactions, and to pause and use the practices and resources that help me listen, understand, or try to understand, and more effectively and respectfully engage, rekindle my commitment, and support my resilience to stay the course and try again. It's kind of cutting to the chase, but I think you probably have been in these experiences plenty of times to get the gist of what I'm referring to. So the company we keep, for me, probably as you, means People's Church, Isaac, the Isaac family, as Dr. Charlotte calls it, and the Blue Mountain Center for Meditation, which is based on Eshwaran's teaching. And if you want to talk with me about that more, I'd be glad to tell you more about it. So I learned from a close friend who has seen her partner through some unbelievable health issues and now is working on promoting the survival of her son, adult son, who has struggled mightily with addiction. And I realized that she had very carefully cultivated 3 places that she participates in each week that help her stay on track and renew her strength. And so it just helped me to think about where are those places for me and how is it that I engage. So in regard to the sources of inspiration we seek, Reverend Rachel's sermons, how does she do this so many Sundays of the year? The teachings of Eshwaran, which include inspirational passages for meditation and other resources there, like the thought for the day that Matthew read earlier about St. Francis, and other spiritual reading like Mark Nepo, and maybe another favorite is Pema Chodron. I imagine many of you have read her work, Living Beautifully with Uncertainty, The Places That Scare You, A Guide to Fearlessness in Difficult Time. It just, feels like a handbook. So, and then practices to sustain, return, and persist. So this I really had to also think about in these recent years to make it a more conscious part of my life, to help me recognize and face when I have come up short, which obviously that's the key, right, to changing, to hold my seat with anger and fear, and to renew my effort to start again. So for that, in a daily way, I use a mantra, I meditate on an inspirational passage. Weekly, mostly, I come to People's Church to engage with people that inspire me all the time, including yesterday, all day long, and attend the Isaac Anti-Racism Task Force to keep understanding, trying to understand the reality of my BIPOC colleagues, and participating in a weekly satsang. So these have become more cultivated for me, and I imagine you have your own set. So I see our values as a spiritual journey that has to be operationalized in what we think, how we act, and what we say, that it's a lot more than conceptual. So even though I fail regularly, I see the journey as something we aim for again and again. So I offer those just maybe as grist for the mill, and I think the real inspiration will come from our conversations together. This is our first summer Sunday this year, so just kind of remind people, and for those of you who are with us for the first time, what we do is to break into just, turning around easily to find a group of 3 or 4. The smaller it is, the more opportunity you get to share. You might want to be maybe with people you don't live with every day, although the hermits found good value in that too. And so we use the good listening strategies. When each person speaks, we only listen. And then we don't comment until everybody's had a chance to share. We don't have lots of time, so I think it's helpful maybe for you to choose the question you most want to talk about, and then if there's time, you could go around again. This is not a share or die. If this is not your thing, that's fine. And of course, we leave the stories and the names here, but we want to take the learnings away with us in how we leave this place. Remember to lean in and lean out. If you're inclined to talk a lot, try to pull back. And if you don't share, maybe think about how somebody might benefit from what you have to say today. Okay, so the questions, Sam has kindly put those up as well, and they're also in your order of service. And so we have, I think, I'd say about, well, I think we could take 20 minutes, which is, I think, pretty good, and then we'll still leave time for the closing. We're not going to process it as a group, so we'll just encourage you to maybe shift in about 10 minutes if you're kind of stuck. Please introduce yourselves to each other, and we'll just take time now to shuffle and rumble and find a small group. And for people on Zoom, they will use the wizardry of the, what do you call it? Breakout room, thank you. Depending on how many are there, either you'll be all together or Sam will break you into groups. So if we're ready to roll, enjoy. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so I think we've brought this to a close, and it almost, all right, I don't have a little, yeah. Would the group in the rear come join us again? Somebody give them a bump. There we go. Thank you.
Would the group in the rear come join us?
Our visitors bring
Everyone,
back to task.
Our right, groups are stopping?
Yep, I got it. Okay.
Wrap it up? Okay.
Thank you. So thank you for engaging with each other, obviously deeply and I hope meaningfully. It's just the start of these conversations, and this is our theme for the whole summer. So hopefully there'll be more opportunities to pursue these things. And we do have after the service where we can talk together. And for people on Zoom, you're invited into the coffee hour by chat or by Zoom. So thank you so much for all of that. Turn it back to, well, let's see, I guess I'm supposed to do this. So we're going to sing our closing song, and special thanks to Catherine and Jen, and to Jennifer, as always. This one is Let It Be a Dance, and I thought it might be fun to just lighten up and remember that life kind of is a dance. We go back and forth and up and down. So enjoy. If you want to move, it is kind of a good one for moving. So here we go. So please rise, and if you're able and willing.
Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Let a dancing song be heard. Play the music, say the words, and fill the sky with sailing birds. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Learn to follow, learn to lead. Feel the rhythm, feel the need. Reap the harvest, plant the seed. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Let everybody turn and spin. Let your body learn to bend. And like a willow with the wind. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. A child is born, the old must die. A time of joy, a time to cry. Take it as it passes by. Let it be a dance. a dance we do. May I have this dance with you, through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Morning star comes out at night. Without the dark there is no light. If nothing's wrong, then nothing's right. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let the sunshine, let it rain. Share the laughter, bear the pain. And round we go again. Let it be a dance.
Now go forth into the world in peace. Be of good courage, prove all things, and hold fast to that which is good. Blessed be.